Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, Aston Villa versus Hibs preview / transfer rumour mill. Before we get into all that, mate, how are you doing?
I'm very well, mate. I am very well. The Villa Filler gods have truly descended on us, and not only have they given us our first ever home European match to discuss today, but we've also got a transfer rumour mill, two in one. It's the first time we've ever had the opportunity, you and I, to talk about a home European contest at Villa Park. So yeah, I mean that's a treat enough as it is, but got a pretty exciting transfer as well to go around, which is good because it got a little bit quiet recently. I felt that there hadn't been a lot of noise, but I've got something to show you if that's okay.
Oh,
I wanted to wait
yeah.
until we're on air, but I've left it on the other side of the room, so you're gonna have to bear with me. I'll be right back.
Oh my God. And through the power of editing, Dan will magically reappear. I always thought that was a wall there, mate. I can't lie. I thought you were up
Well,
against
there you
the wall.
go. No, so I'm actually my kitchen's in front of me, but so Chloe, my girlfriend, her mum and dad have recently been on a little driving holiday of Europe and passed through Belgium and picked me up something which I can't actually bring myself to eat. We have Yuri Tielemans. I believe he has a little brand of fondant here, which is
Oh my
really
God.
thick. Look at that. Look at that.
That's,
But yeah,
wow.
Yuri branded, and I can't bring myself to eat it. And I got it. I was like, it's just been in my fridge because I was like, signed by Yuri as well. So he's got his little signature on it there. Amazing. So I didn't even realize he had this little side hustle. But yeah, Villa fans, get on it because we can support our very own. I mean, he's not played too many games since he came to Villa, but maybe that's why he's been working on his own little fondant. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. So I was like, I've got to show that on the podcast. So yeah, sorry for ditching you in the intro momentarily, but I just realized I was like, yeah, I've got to show him this.
I think next
On the
week
theme
or
of
whenever you come round to it, mate, we need a live taste test on the pod.
Yeah,
Maybe not now. I don't want to force you to open it now, mate, if you're not feeling it. But when you do decide to crack it open, I think it's only fair we do it live on the Villa Filler.
Oh, absolutely, mate. I mean, look, it's like, as I said, I can't. It's really nicely wrapped. It's like proper paper and everything, but yeah, it's like proper thick as well. So yeah, I'll save it for a rainy day. But yes, you're absolutely right. We'll crack it open. I'd love to say I could share it with you, mate, but I think that'll be a little difficult over Zoom. But I just thought that was fantastic. I wanted to share that with you.
That's brilliant. That has
Beat
to
that.
be one of the most like bizarre but also like cool pieces of football memorabilia that you could probably get your hands
That's what
on.
I'm saying.
Like
That's what I'm saying. I was like, I
really,
can't bring
that's
myself.
awesome.
I
That's
can't bring
great.
myself to open it, so it's literally just going to have to stay in the wrappers for all time until it like goes out of date. But yes, I promise we will open it and we'll dive into it. But yeah, on the theme of Europe and everything like that, I thought we'd got to crack it open today.
That's brilliant, mate. Shout out to Chloe's parents for sorting you out there. I think we start with the transfer rumour mill, mate, aspect of this podcast. I think it's only fair. Fabrizio Romano getting the exclusive. I always find it funny. Fabrizio and Ornstein are in this kind of war, aren't they, with how they report their own news. And this is an exclusive from Fabrizio. He started putting EXCL in front of some of his tweets to, I guess, make him stand out. Aston Villa are weighing up a move for Clement Lenglet as an option on the table for the final days of the transfer window. That's just a load of nonsense that he's just said there. Just the way that sentence is worded. I know English isn't his first language. I'll claim a bit of slack, but that's told me nothing. There are multiple options available, but Barcelona aware of Aston Villa interest, waiting for development. In any case, Barca feel that Champions League will... Oh, Champions League. I just said Champions League. CL means Clement Lenglet, not Champions League. Barcelona feel that Clement Lenglet will leave. Fabrizio, you just made me look at
That is confusing. That is confusing.
That's very confusing. Fuck you, Fabrizio. In any case, we spoke about this off air on text earlier, mate, when we were sort of planning today's podcast. And I don't think either of us were too enamoured by this one, if we're both being completely honest with ourselves. But I think upon reflection and upon having a look at some of the numbers, which I will run you through in a moment, I don't necessarily think that this, as a loan signing, for a season is necessarily the worst bit of business that we could do. And again, what we have to caveat that like any transfer, whatever it may be, whether we love it or hate it, Unai Emery's decision and Monchi's decision is realistically all that we can go off. There will be probably more negative preconceptions with Clement after his sort of, I don't want to say disastrous loan spell at Spurs, but it wasn't fantastic. But I'm warming to this a little bit, mate.
Yeah, no, me too. Me too. I would almost go as far as to say I think it makes sense. I'm aware that, you've got a lot of the numbers and you're going to be doing a deep dive into FBref and everything as you so love to do, but just some like kind of wider context around the player. The first thing to say is that he's wonderfully talented on the ball. And that has always been evident right from his time in France to his time at Sevilla and pretty much all through his kind of period at Barcelona. Whilst it's been a little bit rocky, he always felt like a player that when called upon could fit into that system. And I think that, his stock has kind of taken a bit of a hit in the last year or so in the time that he's been at Spurs. But I almost kind of believe that he deserves a free hit in that sense, because I was kind of taking in what Spurs have become under Ange Postecoglou, and the mood around the club has instantly lifted, and you're starting to see players come out of the woodwork that you never really had down as kind of great players starring in these kind of new roles. Like Yves Bissouma looks like a man reborn. So does Pape Sarr. Emerson Royale's goal on the first day of the season. I feel like the whole situation around Spurs at the time and what was being asked of a central defender under Conte compared to what would be asked of a central defender now under Unai Emery. And you kind of look at Pau Torres as someone that's a prime example of that, and someone that we want, someone that can progress the ball and be good offensively and kickstart moves. I think on a loan deal, so that when it's all said and done, depending on the options involved, Ty could have his spot in the first team set up given back to him. I think it kind of makes sense.
I think you're right, mate. And the numbers do back that up. I've got here a comparison between Clement Lenglet and all of Villa's current senior centre-halves. And career-wise, Clement Lenglet actually has the highest pass completion rate of the lot, boasting an 89.2% pass completion rate career to date. That is. Then second to that is Ezri Konsa with 85.9%. Pau Torres with 85.8%, Diego Carlos with 84.6%, and then we've got Mings on 79.9%, and Callum Chambers, let's not forget about him, on 79.5%. So, I mean, I feel like that almost, that not only backs up your claim, but actually it's quite interesting to see how it is significantly better. As I say, that is across the span of his whole career. Especially when you compare it to someone like Pau, who obviously, again, like we've seen how great his passing stats are in the flesh. We've seen that. The eye test tells us that from what we've seen of him in just a Villa shirt alone in what is a very short sample size. I feel like he's got a bit. I mean, he's got, as we kind of pointed out, he's got a bit of a bad rep for Spurs. He obviously joined Barcelona from Sevilla, where Monchi actually signed him. I believe it was back in 2017. So here we are again, Monchi dealing with players that he already knows and has experience with and can trust to a certain degree. And let's be real, Barcelona were in their reckless days of spending. I guess they still are, but we're talking around the time where they paid all this money for Felipe Coutinho, Ousmane Dembele, players like that. And Clement Lenglet is a player that I think at the time, it's fair to say a few people probably questioned why Barcelona bought him. But I think that's mainly just within the context of Barcelona are spending so much money. What are they doing? Not Clement Lenglet isn't a player that's good enough to play for Barcelona.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing the kind of lengths that they've had to go to get players registered and everything like that. Clement Lenglet is actually one of the highest paid players at Barcelona, apparently. He's set for join 16 million euros in wages alone this season due to a contract renewal that happened back in 2020. obviously at the time there were several players earning more than he was, but one by one, those players have kind of been pushed off the books, and it's left them in this situation where Clement Lenglet, as much as I think they'd like to have him, has kind of become untenable in this squad and under their wage structure, which has been put under so much pressure given the financial constraints that the club have kind of been under. We know all about the levers and everything like that that have kind of orchestrated Barcelona's transfer windows gone by. And it's kind of impossible, it seems, to keep him on. And yet, I think a loan in that sense makes sense for everybody. It looks like Villa are going to pay between 30 and 40% of those wages. So people can do the maths on that one. But I think it's very fair and seems to fit well within our own wage structure. So, yeah, I think his career is in a place where I think the fee for Barcelona would want for him. I don't suppose there are too many clubs that are looking to take a punt on that now. Apparently, his former club Sevilla have been interested as well. But Villa look like one of the only clubs that are willing to pay some kind of fee, albeit perhaps only a loan fee, up front right now, which puts us in the lead, it seems, to win this race. So, yeah, he seems to have a couple of offers in different countries around Europe, but obviously Barca's financial situation will, I think, dictate this one. And I think that's putting Villa at the front of the queue, it looks like.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, mate, because I think, again, like, he's left-footed, obviously, with this being potentially a loan as well. As you mentioned, being able to get that cover for Tyrone. And if we play this sort of tilted back four that we have been playing with the sort of, we're spread very thin, really, is what I'm trying to get at. The fact we're playing potentially concert right back along with Diego and Pau. Regardless of how you slice that, you're fielding three centre-halves in a back four. That only leaves Callum Chambers currently on the bench as a senior player who is a centre-half, who, again, is probably more of a right-back or a defensive midfielder, if we're being completely honest with ourselves in that one as well. Obviously, Cal can cover that position. So while we're without Tyrone, it does make sense. And, yeah, you're right. I mean, the wages are just ridiculous, mate. So something would have to be agreed there. I don't think Tottenham were paying anywhere near that, if we're being honest. We know what Daniel Levy is like. I believe they were paying more around 150,000 a week, and it appears he's on around 270,000 a week, which is just shocking to hear, considering how little he has really played at Barcelona. But no, I find it interesting because I was thinking about this earlier, mate. We've obviously had dealings with Barcelona in Coutinho in that saga, and I mean, Monchi is somebody who clearly has dealt with Barcelona before throughout his time in La Liga. But obviously, like, Christian Perslow dealt with Barcelona. So it's going to be interesting to see how Monchi's connections and relations actively work here, because I know we don't necessarily know the inner workings of how Villa's transfer business was completed. But I think from what we know about Christian Perslow, and certainly from what I've heard, people sort of privately talk about, I can't speak for what you may have heard, mate, but he's very bullish and it's his way or the highway. And I've heard that there's a lot of sort of screaming down phones and just in general being a bit of a bastard. I don't know if that's Monchi's style, but I guess it would help having somebody on the phone speaking the language and sort of knowing the league and the value of players within the league, that kind of thing. And I guess it's just going to be interesting to see how we go and build relations with other clubs, because at the end of the day, a transaction has to benefit both teams. And yeah, I just thought that something interesting to discuss, because I mean, obviously, we've clearly been linked with the likes of Ansu Fati and Ferran Torres. They're names that just keep popping up. So it'll be interesting to see if it's kind of like we scratch their back and take Clement Lenglet off them for a year. How would that benefit us in future negotiations?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think we kind of had this. Reminds me of a couple of seasons ago. Do you remember in January when there was like Christian Perslow was in Milan, he's talking to AC Milan about a player, and we were like, oh my God, we're getting Christoph Piontek. This is like in the season where we came up and we were all getting really giddy about this, and it turns out we were just getting Pepe Reina. It kind of feels like that, doesn't it? It's like, oh my God, Villa are talking to Barcelona. Is it Ansu Fati? Is it Ferran Torres? No, it's Clement Lenglet on loan, which is nowhere near as sexy as those two, but a very useful piece nonetheless.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. So, yeah, I think he's definitely got something to contribute. And again, I think, just to echo what I said at the top, whatever Unai and Monchi want, ultimately they know more than us. And I think we can look past a loan spell at Tottenham. But, mate, we've got a European night to talk about. 5-0. It's already done. It's in the bag. There's not a lot we can really say on Hibs or in terms of previewing this game. So we thought we would go through the 11 and pick our, not necessarily ideal starting 11, but we thought it'd be fun to maybe see what we could assemble and hopefully, it goes that way, and hopefully we have players get debuts and whatnot, and it'd be interesting to see a few players get given a run out. And I think it would only be fair, mate, to start with the goalkeeper position, because, we gave Robin Olsen his props on the other podcast. And, I mean, do we risk Emmy in this game? Someone who has still potentially got another knock. I mean, at this stage, it's almost a given, knock on wood, that we make the group stages. So it's not as if we're depriving Emmy Martinez of a European night at Villa Park. Are we erring on the side of caution with this one? How are you feeling? Do we reward Robin? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think Olsen makes sense to me in this game, to be honest with you. I just think that, again, it's about the game that we have in the weekend. We have an international break coming up, and we know how much those mean to Emi Martinez. Scaloni will almost certainly want him to be front and central in that squad. So I imagine he's kind of got one eye on that game as well. And so, yeah, I think, to be honest with you, it's probably even one where, I don't want to go too comfortable with this, but yeah, I want to see a lot of the younger guys involved as well. And so, yeah, I think definitely you could give Olsen a pretty comfortable run out here. And I know what Emmy's hunger for European competition at Villa Park is very, very admirable. And as a fan, I really appreciate it, but his time will come, and in far more important games than this, we hope.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Right back, I'm feeling Callum Chambers. I think we're going to want to be resting certain players ahead of our game with Liverpool on Sunday. I think looking at just the sort of general lack of depth in that position, that's really the only place that I see Cal starting is at right back. And I think, again, that probably lends itself to being either Esri and Pau, or Diego and Pau as our centre-half pair in there, mate.
Yeah, I would totally concur. I think it's almost interesting that we haven't seen more of Callum Chambers to this point, to be honest with you, considering not only his previous ties with Unai Emery, obviously he worked under him at Arsenal, but also that he seems to be very in that kind of mould, in that kind of centre-back come right-back role, a lot of experience playing both positions, good on the ball, and is someone that we both were quite hot on when he was playing, and for quite long spells. I remember both you and I came on this podcast a few times and talked about how much we were impressed by what Chambers could do. And so, yeah, I think in this game he's someone that I'd really like to see get a run out, and then yes, across that kind of back line, don't think rotation is kind of as important. And so, yeah, it's probably when you get into the left back spot that things get a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Dean, really, isn't it?
That's the thing.
It's just
that's
Dean,
the thing.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting with
stuck, but make it sound bad.
No, well, he's been fantastic, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He almost at the point where I'm considering him as a kind of FPL pick, to be honest with you, given his output in recent weeks. But no, I think it's interesting because obviously we saw Pau Torres there, and that's the kind of time that I don't know whether in pre-season that is. I don't know whether Unai kind of wants to carry on that experiment and kind of get to see it a little bit more. I know Villa fans weren't totally enamoured, but yeah, I mean, it kind of reinforces that we probably really need to do some business in that position, don't we? Or at least get a better idea of what Moreno's kind of timeline is, because both him on JJ's front, it's all been very hush-hush, hasn't it, to start the season? We don't really know too much about their situations. Obviously, those pictures came out about JJ in a boot, but with Moreno, it's all a bit of a mystery, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, JJ was actually spotted at the Burnley game. Obviously, that was a big one for the Ramsey family, with Aaron making his Burnley debut. So it was nice to him. That I imagine he'll be at the PFA Awards tonight because he's nominated for Young Player of the Year. I doubt he'll win it, just given the fact that like you've got Haaland, you've got Saka, who sit in that same category. Like it's whoever doesn't win Young Player will probably end up winning Player of the Year. I think it's fair to say. But yeah, that'll be an interesting one. So yeah, I think back four we go with Cal, Diego, Pau, and Dean. Do you know what? I've obviously, as you mentioned, mate, we both do quite like Cal Chambers. And listeners of the podcast for a long time will know. And I think, great. There's great memories of him. That goal leads away. That was just phenomenal. Like, I was right in line with him when he struck that, and the way that curved, that was just phenomenal. Not to name drop on the podcast either, but when I was shooting with Rob Holden, we was chatting off air just a little bit about, because like it got brought up that I was a Villa fan and that because there was Aston Trusty there, he was a Blues player, and we was talking about Cal because I think his best friend in football is Cal Chambers. And he's like, Cal should definitely be playing more. And I was like, okay, like obviously it's his mate, so you take that with a grain of salt and you take that for what it's worth. But also I feel like nobody understands the game better than the professionals themselves. And he felt like Cal has maybe been, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but not given the opportunity he's deserved. And since having that discussion with Rob, I've really wanted to see Cal, and I want him to be proven right. Because I'm a part of the Callum James fan club, mate.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair as well. Like, I don't think he probably has been given a fair crack at the whip, and I imagine there's certainly been times where he thought he might come into the frame that maybe he hasn't. And so, yeah, look, to be honest, it looks like later this week is a kind of another opportunity for him to get in. And if he doesn't, then yeah, the writing probably really is on the wall, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Midfield, mate, this is, again, I kind of feel like with the DM positions, obviously we've had the news that Leander Dendoncker is sort of back in training, and I didn't really know how to take Unai's comments about him, mate. Maybe this was me being the pessimist that I can be at times, but it kind of felt like he said, look, I've been working with him for 10 months now and things haven't been great. That's how I read into the comments. I don't know if that's just me. Guys, let me know in the comments. Dan, let me know what you think as well, mate, because I don't know. I just felt like it was a weird way to talk about a player who, I mean, it must be frustrating. He's probably been out with 3 or 4 injuries throughout Unai's spell. So maybe that sort of passive-aggressive tone that I'm maybe picking up on is due to the circumstances rather than the ability.
Yeah, I think there was a line. It was that hopefully, yeah, I've got it here. Hopefully he's going to keep consistent for a long time because I think he can help us. And so, yeah, it's one of those quotes that's always worth written down, isn't it? I imagine in quite and in Unai's quite typical, quite well warm tone. I imagine it sounded fine, but when you write it down, is that like hopefully he can stay consistent? Sort of feels, as you say, like a bit of a backhanded like dig, really. So yeah, I don't expect him to walk straight into this one, but yeah, I mean, maybe he's someone that you can look at sort of seeing come off the bench. I think in the DM spot, it'd be interesting to sort of see what we go with and what the kind of setup is, whether we're more confident going with the one or whether we still kind of roll with the 2, because if we do go with the 2, it's probably going to have to be someone like Luiz and Kamara. But I really think this is the perfect time to see Yuri Tielemans.
Yeah, it would be nice to see Yuri. And I think, I don't know, it's not I don't know where his best position is. I think, as an 8 box to box, that is ultimately his best position. But I think if it's Yuri and Dougie, out of the 2, you probably want Dougie to be the one that's more of a 6, the one that stays back and is, more like Kamara in the Kamara and Luiz partnership, right? That's where you would probably want Dougie there. I don't think I'd feel as comfortable with Tielemans playing a bit deeper, not because I don't think he's got the ability, and especially against someone like Hibs, again, with no disrespect at all intended to the opposition. I think he's more than capable of doing that. But I also just think that his range of passing is so good to almost to make him sit in front of the back four. I think at times what was interesting in the Burnley game was the areas that Kamara was dropping in to cover, to receive the ball, to start the counter-attack. He was dropping into that sort of space between the centre-half and the right-back. He was really constantly offering, an out-ball for either Concert or Diego, which I thought, is really important. And again, that is, in terms of progressing the ball, that's something that Tielemans is obviously very good at. But I think... Is Dougie more mobile than Tielemans?
Yes.
Because I like seeing Dougie free. I like Dougie to be free. And I think that's what my concern would be with that pairing. I like to see him being able to dribble with the ball and let's get Dougie in the final third a little bit more. Do you know what I mean? I feel like we haven't seen enough.
No, I agree.
But also Tielemans, mate. That's where Tielemans operates best. So I think that, I'm happy with them too. I think it's like, because we're talking about, I hate using the sort of phrase like a weakened side and all this kind of stuff, because realistically, we're talking about making 2 or 3 changes here, aren't we? If we're to the lineup that started the other day, like it's not wholesale. It's not like we're playing kids. Like when we spoke about that in the preview for the last one, mate, people were like, it's so disrespectful, arrogance, this is that. It's like, no, the only changes we're talking about making is like Kamara or Louise for Tielemans. Like not many great, not many teams can have that luxury, by the way. Or maybe even giving someone like John Duran the nod over Ollie Watkins, who again, like, within the context of him scoring his first Premier League goal, I feel like that's not that disrespectful, really, is it?
No, I think that's probably a good segue into those attacking areas, mate. And I want to talk about Nicola Zaniolo.
Yes.
Because I think this is it. What a great opportunity to make his debut. As soon as he walked on the other day with that shirt tucked in, I was like, yes, I like this guy. Baby. I like this. This is what it's about. I want to see my tricky centre attacking midfielder. He came on, shirt tucked in, poked it through that player's legs, played that no-look ball out wide, and I was like, hey, the damn fee right now, Munchie. I really like that guy, and I'd love to see him sort of get the nod in one of those wide spots. I think this is almost the perfect situation in which to make your home debut. There'll be a really good feel factor at Villa Park. It's a free hit. You can go out, express yourself. You're not, you've got a game to get used to the more kind of the aggressive tempo of the Premier League ahead of maybe a roll off the bench against Liverpool at the weekend. So yeah, the whole thing just feels like perfectly set up for his debut, to be honest with you.
I thought it was interesting hearing Emery talk about him as a striker in his post-match press conference as well.
Yeah.
We've obviously spoke about him being the second striker in the system and that kind of thing. And he's led the line in other teams. Like he's done it for Roma at times as well as Galatasaray. I thought it was really interesting. And I don't think I'm 6'3" myself, right? You're 6'3", mate. I didn't comprehend, you don't see yourself, right? I can't see myself walking down the street. I don't know how big 6'3" looks. I just know how it feels, okay? Because I am 6'3". Just to reiterate that point. He looked fucking massive. And he's 6'3". He looked huge. And that height, we don't have that. And it's very rare that you get an attacking player, somebody who's that quick, agile, good with their feet, be that tall. I mean, speaking from personal experience, I can't fucking do that. Do you know what I mean? I'm not that good with the ball. So I mean, it's brilliant to see.
Mate, I've got nothing more to add on that. That is a brilliantly made point. Yeah, game in the 11. I want to see.
He's a unicorn.
100%.
But okay. Maybe we're talking about wholesale changes here. Maybe I am veering into that a little bit. Is my forward line? Is this crazy? Is it crazy that I want Zaniolo, Duran, Traore?
Yeah,
is it crazy?
I want to see that too.
do you want to see this?
That's why I want to see that too. Just go full vibes. Who cares? The thing is there's 2 ways to look at this, because Ollie Watkins is going to see this as more goals in European competition. right?
Yeah,
This
that's
is
true.
the chance where he can go out and feasibly get another hat trick. Like, who knows? And, that puts me in great stead going into the season. The strikers are, by nature, inherently greedy. And that's why they play in the position that they do. That, like, that's why they are so good at what they do, is because inherently, like, they kind of want these. And that's why you see strikers come off at, games where they're 4-5-0 up and haven't scored, and they're throwing their toys out the pram. It's because they want to get on the score sheet when they smell blood, when there's an opportunity against sides that are down and out. That's when they want to come into the fold. And so, whilst I think you're never really going to get, I would even argue this is better than an FA Cup third round game. I don't think you're going to get a better chance to give John Duran his first start, because even at FA Cup, we know that there's history in the third round of the FA Cup or something like that. We know that it's just laden with potential issues and obstacles. Whereas with this one, like with the job already done, this is as good a situation as you're going to get to give someone like Duran his first start. And we haven't seen that yet. We haven't really seen John Duran over a period longer than half an hour, I dare say.
Yeah.
We've never really had even seen a half yet, so it'd be really interesting to see kind of what his game is like, because he comes on and he's a bit bull in the china shop, isn't he? Like, he's a bundle of energy, and you can see all he wants to do is impact the game. But when it's over an extended period, does that change? Is he a bit more composed? What's that kind of like? And I similar to Zaniolo, I just think this is the best time to break Duck, give him his debut, and then from there, that whole side of thing is already done.
I've just been trying to process this now, because I know a few people were talking about Zaniolo being greedy and selfish in the final third, and look, it's his debut. He's going to be excited. He's going to want to get a couple shots off. Can't hate him for that. Does an attacking three of Zaniolo, Duran, or Traore, do they even look for each other for passes, or are they all just shooting on sight? Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah, who cares? Who cares? Just honestly, have some fun, man. I think Diaby would maybe be someone that could tie that together kind of quite nicely. But yeah, with Zaniolo coming off the bench, it's like, man, we were 2-1 at 3-1 up. We're I think he came on at 3-1. We were playing really well. It's that kind of thing that I was talking about. Of course, he wants to come on and score a goal, and we want to. That's what I kind of want to see from a player in that position. Is you kind of don't want to see. Obviously, it's not bad, but come on and play it safe and keep it tight. Little touches, get the ball turned, play it out wide. Get it back, put it recycle the ball. You can do that, and it's all very well and good. But he's taking people on, trying shots, dropping it out wide, getting it back, trying to go through defenders' legs. That's great. To have that kind of confidence on day one in the Premier League is awesome. And I really don't, I didn't really see it as selfish, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people have that opinion. I personally didn't. But I can understand why people have that kind of sense coming away from it. But ultimately, I just don't think it's a bad thing.
No, I agree. And as well, I thought, again, it's within the context of the opposition. But yeah, this is a game where I think Bertrand Traore, with what he offered in the last leg, mate, obviously winning the penalty, looked really sharp coming inside as well. I feel like he has earned a start in this game, and he's more than capable of playing against opposition like this. And I feel like it would almost be rude not to play Bertie in this kind of game.
Yeah, he came on and played very well. If this game ends 0-0, it doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter. I think it's about making sure guys are fresh, because we've seen that, obviously we've just spoken about Lenglet coming in, but attacking players, it doesn't look like, unless something, Lenglet pops up kind of out of nowhere, to be honest with you, and it looks like there's a good chance of it happening. And so something might happen. The window closes on Friday. It's Tuesday night at the time of recording. We've got a game to play, and nothing usually happens on game day. Normally it's pretty quiet on the day of a game. An attacking option might pop up, but at the moment, time recording doesn't really look too likely. So making sure guys like Bertie are fit are important, because you just don't know what kind of role they're going to have to play.
Yeah, and listen, I'm all for Bertie getting opportunities in the first team, because I think he offers something unique that nobody else does, and I don't really think you can argue with the goals that he scored, and especially some of the teams that he scored against as well, and the types of goals have been absolutely magnificent. So justice for Bertie, and I think that's probably a good note to end this podcast on. I'm not going to ask you a prediction because who knows who's even going to play.
I got it right against Burnley.
And you did get it
3-1.
So 3-1. You got that one right. So we got to give you your dues there, mate. And guys, let us know your thoughts on both the transfer rumour mill and this game upcoming. Let us know who you want to see start against Hibs. I mean, we didn't even speak about John McGinn, mate. John McGinn, I'm sure he'll have a role to play in this game somehow, some way. It'd be nice to see him get on the score sheet as well if he is to play. But guys, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. And if you're listening on Apple and Spotify, make sure you follow, leave a 5-star review, share it, download the episodes, do everything you can. It helps us out more than you could ever imagine. And yeah, if you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, and up the Villa.